Hello, hi, welcome to another BookTube video. In this video, I'm going to be discussing my ranking for the Walter Scott Prize for Historical Fiction shortlist and also trying to predict the winner. 2 years ago, I managed to predict the winner. Last year, not so much. So we'll see how we go this year. I'm a bit more confident this year. Just a shout out to the whole long list, first of all, because I think this year has been really strong. I've enjoyed every single book that I've read. I'm currently on the last of the long list, The Artist by Lucy Steeds, which I'm enjoying as well. So yeah, really strong year. Special shout out as well to the two Roberts and Helm, which didn't make the shortlist, but I think were fantastic in their own ways. The two Roberts is a story that I think everyone should read, should hear about, especially with everything going on at the moment. And it's made a bit more special the fact that it's based on two real people, two real lives that were lived. And Helm, just for its pure genius creativity. Yeah, I've never read a book that's main character is wind, but it works, and I really enjoyed that too. But anyway, let's get on to my ranking for the shortlist. First up, at number 5 is Benbecula. I really enjoyed Benbecula by Graeme Burnet. It's a short story, it's quite small. But yeah, it's got a nice gothic feel to it. I enjoyed the dark undertones. It's centered around the character of Malcolm. We're in a Scottish island on the west, I believe, called Benbecula. I believe it's the West Hebrides. And we're in the, without looking it up, 1850s. I don't know, I'm going to have to look that up now. 1850s, I was right. And we follow the story of Malcolm, his siblings and his parents. And there's not much to do on this island. It's a very slow way of life. They don't have a lot of money. They make their crust from the land or the sea. And we follow real events that happened on this island where Malcolm's brother ends up murdering his parents and his aunt. And yeah, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating deep dive into the real life story which happened. Obviously, this is a fictionalized version of that. The only thing for me, excuse me, is it cut the story a bit short at the end. I wanted to know a bit more what happened to Malcolm's sister, and just a bit more closure, I think, for me. But I still really enjoyed it. I love a gothic tale anyway. Yeah, very dark. Probably the darkest book we've got on the shortlist. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Benbecula. Forgot what it's called then. In at number 4, I feel really guilty having this in my 4th place, but I think it just goes to show how strong the shortlist is. And I remember feeling similar last year when I was doing my ranking and we had books like The Mayor that weren't in the top 2, which was a really great story. But, it's really strong. And yeah, so my 4th place is Once the Deed is Done by Rachel Seiffert. I really enjoyed this. It's the first of the 2 World War II novels we've got on the shortlist. This one takes place just as the war has ended. We're based in a small village in the north of Germany, and we have different perspectives here. We've got a perspective from the townsfolk who live in this German town, how they feel now the war has ended and they've been taken over by the British Army who have moved in, and yeah, they're kind of taken control of this local works which had been used as like a prison camp. And we follow the story of Ruth, who is a Red Cross worker from England, and we follow her narrative when she's looking after all these prisoners of war and trying to get them back to where they came from. And at the heart of this story is something which happened before the British came and took over the running of this town. Something dark, something secretive. I really enjoyed this novel. It's got a great pace to it. I like the different perspectives. It's quite unique. I think the only thing for me, and I said it in the video for this when I did my review, it's one of two things. I'd either prefer we didn't know something was coming. I mean, you can tell by the title, Once the Deed is Done, something's happening, but it kind of gives a little indication in the blurb. So then you're kind of waiting for this thing to happen, you're expecting it, and you don't get much hint throughout the novel. All of a sudden, bang, at the end, there you go. It's still quite hard hitting when you get to that point, but I think I'd have preferred either having a bit more allusion to it throughout the novel, or not having this bit on the back. You've got the title, and then you build up the story like it is done, and then at the end it's just, I think it would have taken me more by surprise. But that's just a little niggling thing for me. Obviously I'm probably sure it didn't affect anyone else in that way, but that's just how I felt about reading it. But I still really enjoyed it. I think it's still a great read. In at my number 3, which was quite a surprise for me, because normally on the Walter Scott Prize shortlist I don't tend to get along with the shorter pieces of literary fiction. So a couple of years ago we had Absolutely and Forever, didn't get along with. Last year The Height in Winter, didn't get along with. But this one I actually felt a bit of a connection to. So my number 3 is Seascraper by Benjamin Wood. I really enjoyed this story. Not a lot really happens, but I felt connected to it. I love the writing. It's very beautiful writing. We follow the story of a young man here who lives once again in a remote sort of area, and his days are exactly the same day after day. Doesn't feel like he's living for much. He's a bit awkward, a bit introvert, and then one day this guy comes along and potentially looks to change his complete whole life. Things don't necessarily work out how we think they're going to work out, but that doesn't change the fact that our main protagonist here, his life is changed. Seeing the impact that this encounter has on Thomas Flett, I just felt really connected to. It's, I say, not that I've lived his experience, but the fact that we build ourselves up to something and it may not necessarily happen how we want it to happen, but that still gives us that impetus to actually make a change for ourselves, because no one else is going to make that change. And it finally gives him that sort of motivation to get out there and do that. And I felt really connected to it. I thought it was really beautiful writing. So that is at my number 3. And what I particularly liked as well, which was a nice touch, there's a bit about Thomas wanting to be, a singer-songwriter, playing the guitar. And at the end, there's a link where you can follow the author's website and listen to the song which Thomas composed in the novel. And I thought that was a really nice touch. So yeah, that's my number 3. In at number 2 is The Pretender by Jo Harkin. I absolutely love this. I think it's brilliant. I love sort of medieval era. This is set just before the Tudor period. I love stories from that age. I don't know why. This has a lot of comedy and I really enjoyed that part of it, but there's also some darker elements to it as well. As we follow John, or what he's known at the beginning anyway, he goes through a number of different identity changes. But as we follow him through these identity changes and how it affects him and his own sort of self-worth and how he feels about, having all these demands put on him. And, he just wants the bare minimum to be happy, to be loved. And all these people keep take from him, which slowly kind of drags him down, tears him apart, until we see what's left is someone who's quite, battered and bruised. And it's quite a sad sort of, it's not a sad ending necessarily for the character of John, but it is quite sad how he gets to where he does get to. But yeah, I enjoyed all the different identities that he found himself in. I think it's a really wonderfully unique story, really funny. And yeah, if any other year, it'd probably been my number 1. But as it stands, there was just something a little bit that I enjoyed just a little bit more. But yeah, this is still brilliant. If you haven't read it, I think most people on BookTube have read this, especially the ones that like historical fiction. But if you haven't, go read it. And that leaves my number 1. So my number 1 will come as no surprise to anyone who has watched my videos for the Walter Scott Prize this year. I've mentioned it a number of times. My number 1 is The Matchbox Girl by Alice Jolly. This is just fantastic. I loved the originality of the story. This is our second novel in the shortlist, kind of based around the Second World War. But here we have just before the Second World War. We're in Austria. We follow the story of Adelheid. We meet her when she's quite a young girl and she's a patient in this children's ward at a hospital. And it revolves around the idea of autism back in the sort of Second World War era where it wasn't really fully understood. We follow Dr. Asperger, who Asperger's is named after. And we see how Adelheid interacts with her surroundings. She doesn't speak, but she is fiercely intelligent. And we follow her from a young girl into a young woman. She obviously leaves the hospital as a patient, but ends up going back there and helping out. And we follow, I think the main underlying story here is what the Nazis did to people who were different, who had autism and people like that. That is underlying throughout the whole novel, and seeing Adelheide's realisation, because being autistic like she is, at first she's kind of wanting to fit in. She's believing what people are telling her, but then she's witnessing things with her own eyes, and her mind is changing for herself. It's a really hard-hitting, interesting story, and I really love the writing style as well. The writing style here, I think this is the first book I've read probably ever that has made me change the way I read. Normally, every book I read in the same sort of way. I'm quite a vivid imagination anyway, but how I read usually remains the same. But here I felt myself reading faster because of how it's written, not in a negative way at all, but it made me feel more connected to Adelheid, like I was in her brain because I was reading so fast, but I still managing to read everything. But it made feel like my brain was going at 100 miles an hour, which made me connected more to the story and more to the character, the central character. And I thought that was brilliant. I don't know how the author Alice Jolly's done that, but she managed to do it for me. And yeah, I think that's why, for me, it's an overall package. That's why it's my number one. It was a no-brainer. As soon as I read it, I still had half the long list to read, but I just knew, I didn't think there was going to be anything else that was going to be at the top of my list anyway. So that is my ranking for this year's Walter Scott Prize for Historical Fiction shortlist. Now, predictions. I think if the judges want something which has beautiful writing, and we're going down maybe a similar path to what we did last year with The Land in Winter, then we could be looking at Seascraper taking the win this year. But I think if the judges are looking a bit further afield, not just beautiful writing, but some unique creative writing and a beautiful story that is sad in places, that makes you feel emotions, and a book that makes you read in a different way completely to match the character. If they're looking at those sort of things, then for me, I'm hedging my bets on the Matchbox Girl. That is my own personal winner, but I just feel that this is going to take the win, and now watch Seascraper win, or something else that my number 5, watch that win instead. But for me, I think this is a no-brainer. Everyone I know has read this, and people that have commented on my previous videos have loved this. For a lot of people, it's their number 1 on the shortlist as well. Yeah, so that's what I'm going for. We will find out on Friday, I believe the winner is announced. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this year reading along with the Walter Scott Prize. It's really kind of reignited my passion for reading. I've been reading throughout the whole last year, but obviously not making videos, but this has really spurred me on to get back into it. It's something I really love, not just talking about the books that I've read, but, interacting with all of you as well, having your comments, reading other booktubers' thoughts and watching their videos as well. I've just really enjoyed it. So yeah, this year has been an amazing year for the Walter Scott Prize. As I said at the beginning of this video, I think it's a really strong long list. So it's really, I guess making the shortlist was a very difficult choice. I'd have maybe had a few different choices in the shortlist. I think I would have probably put the 2 Roberts and Helm in there in place of maybe Benbecula, but they're all so strong. I've enjoyed all of them. There's not much else to say. Anyway, I think I'm going to be back. I'll be back with my review of The Artist. I'm nearly done with that. And then after that, I may be doing a TBR video of what I'm going to do next. I think I'm going to head back to my classics and try and get a few of those done over the summer. In the meantime, that's it. Thanks for watching. What's your thoughts on the Walter Scott Prize? Who do you think is going to win? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, thank you.